Hey guys, this is Coach Lawrence. I'm going to post this, and I'm going to try and post these types of things from time to time, just so y'all can have another resource. And basically, if you don't get something or you just want to go over it again, this is a simple way for y'all to be able to review the information, especially if you were absent like some of you these past couple of days. This is the main reason why I'm doing it, so y'all are going to be able to catch up. But this is for everybody, and I'm going to post it on Canvas. So today our objective is to determine how the physical geography of a region affects its economic activities. And so when we talk about physical geography, we need to make sure that we understand what physical geography means. What are physical geographic characteristics that affect a region's economy? So first we'll start out talk about climate. Okay, so these are things like weather, okay, just weather overall, so precipitation, temperature, certain types of storms, things like that affect a place's physical geography. All right. Also, the landforms of a region, such as mountains, hills, rivers, the type of soil a place has. We have some volcanoes, which we're not going to be talking about any volcanoes in U.S. history, but these are things that affect the type of economic activities a region can practice. And you're going to see that as we go through these colonial regions in the next few slides. So we said that physical geography affects the economy. So basically, economy means how a place makes money. Okay, and that's very simplified. But when you think of economy, you need to think money. And if you can do that, I think you'll be fine if you ever have any type of question that asks about the economy or economic activities. All right, so first we're going to start out with the New England colonies. So the New England colonies, and that's up where modern day Maine is, which was actually part of Massachusetts at the time of the 13 colonies. So all the way up north down to around Connecticut, Rhode Island. And so the characteristics of the physical characteristics of the New England colonies, they had swift rivers. Okay, so that helped for transportation. They had heavy, dense forests, which had been growing for many centuries, and we'll see in a second that provides a unique economic opportunity. Also, they had rocky mountains and hills. So rocky terrain and hilly terrain makes it difficult to practice large-scale agriculture. And natural harbors, the fact that natural harbors were part of the a part of the New England colony's physical characteristics made it possible for shipping to occur. The fact that New England is so far up north, of course, if you've been up north during the winter, you know how cold the weather is up there. They have true winters. It's not like down here where we'll have a few cold days every now and then. They had long, cold winters, which because they had long, cold winters, that led to a short growing season. So they could not have agricultural practices for too long because of the weather. So what type of economic activities did that allow them to do? Well, shipping, and that ties back to the natural harbors. They had small farms because they were limited in what they could do because of the terrain and because of the short growing seasons. Trading, they were able to start making stuff, and that allowed for them to trade lumber, as I mentioned, a lot of forest, and so there was a lot of that sounded weird. There was a lot of trees for them to cut down and make stuff out of. And you see down here, shipbuilding. Shipbuilding was a economic practice that they did, and obviously they would make ships out of the wood they would cut down. And then fishing too. Of course, when you can't grow food all the time because of the climate, especially during the winter, sometimes you have to find alternate sources. But the negative consequences that came along with the chopping down of trees for lumber and building stuff and clearing out for settlements and villages was the fact that they were cutting down ancient forests that were thousands and thousands of years old. So this changed the landscape. And when you change a landscape that has been the same way for a really long time, some negative things can happen. Just take, for instance, Woodridge Forest neighborhood. It's great that there's so many houses going up and new places to eat around here. But when so much concrete is put down and it changes the landscape, when there's a lot of rain, that water now has nowhere to go because most of the ground is covered by cement or concrete or houses or whatever the case may be. So flooding happens, and that's what we saw last school year. So moving on to the Mid-Atlantic physical characteristics, much like the New England colonies, they had natural harbors, but they had a more moderate climate. So they're about halfway between the north New England colonies and then the southern colonies, hence mid-Atlantic colonies, and they had a more moderate climate, which meant it was hot sometimes, it was cold sometimes. It would usually work its way back up and down, but stay somewhere in the middle. And they also had forests as well that led to the lumber economic practice like we mentioned with the New England colonies. They also had grain farming, which wheat, barley, rye. They had shipping because of the natural harbors that they had. They also had fur trade. Fur trade was big in that area, so they would hunt beavers and then they would sell the beaver fur overseas, and it was actually a very lucrative business, especially for the French, if we'll recall back to lesson 1. They had small farms, obviously, limited by the growing seasons. They had a little bit longer growing seasons than did the New England colonies, but not much. Trading and then fishing as well. So, southern physical characteristics. So these southern colonies were ideal for growing. Okay, the long growing seasons, the warm, humid climate, the fertile soil, the flat terrain, and the massive amounts of rainfall allowed for a perfect environment for agriculture. Okay, so the most important part of the physical geography of the southern colonies was their climate. The warm, humid climate, which obviously humid means that the air is very, very wet. It has a lot of moisture in it, and rainfall obviously helps with that, but that's really good for feeding and watering plants and creating a very fertile soil. So as a result of that is the massive practice of agriculture in the southern colonies, which leads to the plantation system being one of the main parts of the Southern economy. Okay, and as mentioned, plantation system and slavery were economic practices that happened as a result of agriculture. Things like cotton and tobacco were the cash crops of the southern plantations. As we mentioned with Jamestown, tobacco helped Jamestown survive, and then we know from our talk about the Civil War, cotton going into the Civil War was a huge cash crop in the South. And then obviously they would trade these crops, and that would help them be successful economically, and they were making quite a bit of money, and that's why the practice of slavery was so hard to get rid of, because they realized that getting rid of slavery meant that it was going to take away a lot of money from them, and they didn't like that. So, kind of summing all of this up, the main determining factor of what a region's economic practices are going to be is geography. Okay, geography is the determining factor on what type of economic activity a certain region can have. So, when we think about why was slavery in the South and not the North, it doesn't have to do as much with culture, which obviously there were more people in the North that were against slavery than in the South. But the main reason is because that the South was way more suitable for agriculture and the North just wasn't. And so because of that, the South was a prime spot for the types of crops that would become cash crops that needed a lot of labor, and that labor would come from slavery. So I'll try to do one of these a lesson at a time maybe, and I'll try to keep it up. I'm planning on doing one for lesson 3, maybe even lesson 4 this weekend. If I have time tomorrow, I might try to go back and do lesson 1 and post that on Canvas so you guys can look at it if you need to. It's been a long week, and I'll try to be funnier on the next ones. But we had a football game last night, and I filmed for 4 straight hours, and so and then I was just teaching my heart out all day today. And when you've given your all week long, when it comes Friday at the end of the day, you ain't got nothing left. So this is my last efforts. I'm leaving it all out on the field in this little talk right here, which it's probably not great that this is my best effort right now. But I hope you guys get the information that you need and you're able to refer back to this. Thank you all for those of y'all who took the time to listen to this, and I'm sure it'll help you. And if you ever have any questions about this, remember, feel free to email me or come into tutorials on Tuesday mornings. But until then, you guys stay classy, have a great weekend, and I will see y'all next week.